Well, I have given a long list of things of which I was found guilty on paper but was not guilty in fact, and was never found guilty in a court of law, nor charged with, nor arrested for. There was the time when I was accused of trying to leave a B&B without paying, after I had reported a fellow guest for pushing me downstairs. The PC who came out decided that I was merely trying to avoid paying, and that was recorded on a piece of paper. Later used against me, much, much later, 8 years. Didn't happen. Well, something did happen. I was the victim of a crime in that establishment. No, I'll wait till I'm back in England before naming it, or the place it was in. And then there was the coffee shop incident, which was a non-incident. Well, again, I was the one who was actually who experienced threatening behaviour. I was minding my business outside, eating my coffee cake, with my dog beside me in the sunshine. And one of the proprietors leaned into my face and started shouting at me, "What's wrong with our coffee then?" Because I didn't order one that day. And when I went back to talk to her, that went pear-shaped. I was very polite, but unfortunately I was ushered in by the young girls to talk to her partner, who didn't know what was happening. And I just said, "What's wrong with your coffee is that your 12-year-old employees can't make it." That was it. "I'll call the police," she said, and she did. Well, of course, again, that was 2008, 7? I'm not sure. And I didn't know about it till 2011, because I was never told, she threatened to call the police. I thought, for what? And that was that. And I didn't know they had been called until 2011. So that's 2. There was the one with the notice tacked to my front door about eating pussy, and more than that. And apparently the people who saw the notice also again decided on the spot that I'd put it there myself. That went down on a piece of paper later used against me. I've given this long list under the gang stalking thing. You wouldn't think I could forget any of them, but these trying times. Oh yes, when I was done for harassing a woman who in point of fact had harassed me. Done again for supposedly writing some kind of letter to a woman who had kidnapped or dognapped my dog Flossie for months. She refused to give her back to me, and then tried to charge me £800 for the privilege of getting the dog back. In other words, it actually was a kidnap. It was a ransom demand, and I had to go through a solicitor to get my dog back, and I still had to pay her £400. But I was done for harassing her with one letter, which I don't recall even writing. I thought, to be harassment had to be more than one anyway. It was that. Just numerous, and all in the same place. I have also talked about being arrested. And I have to say, I can't think of a case when I was arrested when I was not in fact guilty of something. When I was actually arrested, because the cases I've just listed, I wasn't arrested, I wasn't charged, and I wasn't convicted. But they were recorded as crimes and used against me as crimes in an eviction. So the police knew that they were perjuring themselves, but it was a closed hearing. So the things of which I was guilty. Number 1. Friday the 13th of January 2006. I had just got back from Bulgaria. And it's strange. I'd been in this market there. And I don't know why, even. I was looking at these toy guns that looked very, very realistic, I have to say. And I can only think I had my grandson in mind. Either that, or given what I was doing for a living at the time, I thought perhaps a toy gun might come in useful. If I was under threat, then I could say, get out. But I remember having terrible doubts about it, thinking, no, I don't think I should buy this. It was a premonition. And what actually happened was I had rented a room in Southampton immediately following my stepmother Ellen's death. And the landlord was a creep. He was an absolute creep. And he was overpaid on rent, well overpaid. And then he said, I'm going to throw your things out and you're not coming back. And unfortunately, some of those things included items I had inherited from Ellen, my stepmother. And he kept sending me these dreadful, dreadful texts, and I couldn't do anything about it. I just cannot explain actually how I felt. Nobody else. I never do explain, because my solicitor advised me not to say why I'd done it. And I knew years later that the police were trying to figure out why I'd done it. I was finally driven to the point of I thought, you are sending me text after text after text with the intention of frightening the shit out of me, threatening me, withholding my rent money from me, which I'd paid and was being chucked out anyway. I was a month ahead, and clearly wasn't going to get my deposit back either. You never do from private landlords, by the way. Don't expect your deposit back. There aren't any real penalties for them if they withhold your deposit. Technically there are, in reality there aren't. But he was going to throw out all my stuff and this and that and the other. And text after text, threat after threat after threat. And finally, I just shot back, I have a gun and I'm going to kill you. One text. Threat to kill. So I was guilty of a threat to kill. Of course, it was a toy gun, right? It was 200 miles away, and I had no intention of killing him, but he didn't know that, and I can't say I'm sorry. I can't say I'm sorry, because he spent so much time being shitbagged to me and trying to frighten me, and it was so soon after Annie's death. And succeeding in frightening me, and he did throw out all my belongings, which he had no right to do. So I'm actually not sorry. Sorry, I can't say I have remorse for that. Ever. It was something that frightened him, and it was intended to frighten him. And it was tit for tat. The police, of course, did not see it that way, and they gave me as hard a time as they could. They arrested me in Godrich and drove me to a police station in Southampton, where they put me in the holding cell farthest from anything. Buried alive again, you know, in a sort of labyrinth of tunnels of this cell where you couldn't communicate with anyone at all. So I was actually guilty. I think I was found guilty. I presume I was. Well, obviously, if they've got the text there, it was a threat to kill. So there you go. That was the first. Because I thought afterwards, when I played it back, I thought, God, it does sound like I've made a habit of getting arrested, doesn't it? So that was number one. And it's so bad, actually, I'm having trouble remembering. There was the one when I did, in fact, I needed mental help that night. I actually did. the night that the policewoman forced me to sign a fake false confession to harassing the woman who had harassed me. She came into my sitting room. Her partner hid round the corner in the hall. And she said, "Sign here or you will be arrested and put in a prison cell." And she knew I was claustrophobic, because I had reported a crime to her and told her so. So I signed. But then I did go somewhat balmy, and I suppose I was triggered. It really sounds like some kind of excuse, but it was mad. Because what I actually did was I got a pair of scissors and I got a towel and I slashed my arms and bloodied a house, a van and a shop, all belonging to the same woman who was involved in this. And that again was 2007. And in 2011 I discovered that they had thought it was blood from a sanitary towel. They would only have had to look at my bandaged arms to know that it was not. That was what the towel was for. There was a sort of practical element to it. I thought, I'll be dripping blood. I'd better wrap my arms in something. Slashed them with scissors. So number 2, wound up in a prison cell. Frankly, I should have been in a mental hospital that night. That night I should have been. Pity they didn't know it was my arms. Not that they actually had any proof that it was me, even. It's 2. There was the Clonon incident when I did have a knife, but it was in a bag. I was not brandishing it. That was an embellishment of the Cambrian news. I wasn't brandishing it at anyone. There was no one to brandish it at. It was in a bag. Guilty of having a knife. And the 4th is more difficult. Because I don't have an excuse. Not really. Basically, using a bed and breakfast and not paying. Which was what I was accused of in 2003 and wasn't guilty of. Ultimately, many years later, I was. You shouldn't have put the idea in my head. No, yeah, remorse for that. Because there wasn't an excuse. So that's it. Those are the crimes I did commit. On a long list of crimes I've been found guilty of on paper and did not commit.